Welcome, everyone. It is Thursday, noon Eastern time, and you know what that means. It is time for Talent Experience Live, the show that covers everything that you need to know in talent acquisition, recruiting, HR, and talent management. Special episode today focusing on talent management, which will, without a doubt, be better than your favorite podcast, your favorite internet show, whatever it may be. You definitely do not ever want to miss an episode of Talent Experience Live. If by chance, the off chance that you have missed it, you can always find it on YouTube, find it on LinkedIn. We do nice blog recaps afterwards. And of course, I am your host, Devin Foster. Talent Experience Live is proudly brought to you by the great team here at Phenom, whose purpose is, Tom, stop me if you've heard this before, to help 1 billion people find the right job. Not a typo, nothing along those sorts. It's one of the reasons why.
Did you say 1 million people? 1 million?
No, Tom, 1 billion
with
a B.
Oh, with a B.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like
awesome.
the hit Showtime series Billions.
Nice.
But we are helping billions of people find the right job. Definitely not a typo. And of course, how do we do this is the next question that everyone asks. We do it through our intelligent talent experience platform that helps candidates find the right fit faster, employees evolve into their current roles and beyond, recruiters achieve next level productivity and efficiency, and managers build better teams with data, analytics, and automation. Of course, all of this is done through super slick artificial intelligence and machine learning. So if you're interested in learning more, head on over to phenom.com. Tom, I didn't even give you the opportunity to introduce yourself or anything along those lines. I threw you right into the fire. For those of you joining, this is Tom Tate, Director of Product Marketing. Tom, say hello. I know you're familiar with the format of the show, but would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. Tom Tate, as you mentioned, Director of Product Marketing, one of a few directors of product marketing here on the awesome team at Phenom. I like to consider myself kind of a TXL co-conspirator. Frequent co-host, frequent guest host. It's not my first rodeo here with Talent Experience Live, but it's been a bit since I've kind of sat in the hot seat with you, Devin. So always a pleasure. We started the show. I'm not ashamed to really brag about that. The legacy of the show has lived on, and we started it in April of 2020. So I think it was an audio podcast at first, and it evolved into the live stream that you're watching now. But yeah, it's been a great ride, and I'm always happy to be on the show.
Yeah, Tom, I like to call TXL my first COVID child. Of course, last year I had an actual baby, but we did create TXL in the midst of the pandemic. And Tom, I know we've kind of taken a new approach over the past month or so with Talent Experience Live, where we really want to hone in on specific topics. Last September, we focused on recruitment marketing. We had industry leaders. We had some folks in the thought leadership space come on and talk about it, as well as practitioners. But I know, working in the product marketing scope of Phenom, we have a litany of products. So what is the theme? What's on deck for TXL this season? What can the people expect? And is there anything particular that you're excited about?
Yeah, definitely. So I will give you a quick rundown of kind of what we're planning, what we're cooking up for this upcoming series of Talent Experience Live. And if you're watching us live right now, if you're in the chat, give us a shout, let us know who you are, where you're tuning in from. And, this series is hot off the heels of the recruitment marketing series that you did a couple months ago, September. So if anybody caught any of those episodes, they were fantastic, so let us know if you've been kind of tuning in. We're going to follow the same format. So we're going to do kind of a 4 or 5 episode arc, a deep dive into this specific topic. And that's going to be employee experience. So we focused on recruitment marketing, and that was great because it really allowed us to kind of curate a bunch of topics that complemented each other, right? And really spoke to how can you level up your recruitment marketing at your organization. We want to do the exact same thing for employee experience, right? Specifically around talent mobility, skills intelligence. I'm super stoked for this. So there's a few topics that I wanted to highlight that we'll cover across the course of these episodes. So I mentioned talent mobility. We're also going to deep dive into learning and development, inclusion and belonging, and skills technology, which is a big hot topic right now. We'll talk a little bit about that today, I think. So we were planning to kick things off today. So this is kind of an impromptu episode between you and I, Devin, but we were supposed to have Ashley Blackmore, who's director of the North American talent acquisition and operations team at Newell Brands. Ashley is a friend of the show. She's been on a couple times. I think she might be the first to enter into our three timers club. We should look into getting her like a jacket. You ever watch SNL, like when the five timers, the six timer club, when a host comes on and hosts for, I think it's 5 times or more, they get a special jacket. They get Steve Martin to come in and kind of do his whole bit, right? So I think Ashley might be our first to enter the three timers club. Maybe we should think about some special merch for her. I don't know.
I'm in favor of it. Tom, I would like a jacket as well.
Yes.
50, 60 timers club. I think you need one that is right up there as well. Let's do jackets.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's official.
We're bringing it to the board. We're gonna bring that one to the board. We're gonna request budget, and we're gonna do all the formalities to get those jackets printed up. So Ashley, Newell Brands, friend of the show, incredible. She was supposed to be on today. We had to reschedule it last minute. Things happen, but we're still going to do it. So we're gonna bounce it back a little bit into the month. Ashley and Newell, they launched their own internal talent marketplace, and they saw a ton of success. So we will dive into the success that they saw, how she did it, and what her future plans are. We just did a case study with Newell, and it's awesome. Like, just to see the results and to see the impact that they're having for their employees is amazing. So we'll dig into that. They're also using referrals too, and we'll take a look at how they're using referrals to really source not just more talent, but high quality talent, which I think is very important that we always consider that as well. Next week. So next week, we will dive into learning and development with Todd Tauber. Todd is the SVP of strategy at Degreed. Degreed, as you know, is one of our favorite and one of the best kind of learning experience platforms, upskilling platforms. And Todd has done extensive research in that space in learning and development. So I figured, hey, if we want to talk learning and development, we need to bring on one of our partners. We need to bring on one of the experts, somebody who's really spent 15 plus years in the industry, digging into this, doing research. So Todd is the best person for that. So we'll specifically be talking about how to create a positive learning culture. So if you're on the talent management side or the learning and development side and you're interested in that, they put out this big report once every 2 years. He'll walk us through that. So that's going to be next Thursday. And then the following Thursday, we'll have our kind of last guest for this series, and that's going to be Jorge Quezada. And he is the VP of People and Culture at Granite Construction. Jorge, Devin, you and I had a call with Jorge a couple months ago, kind of like a prep call where we told him all about TXL, and we got excited. He got excited. Like, it was as far as prep calls go, like, it was a pretty awesome prep call. I left that prep call so energized for this conversation. So he's doing amazing work fostering diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging at Granite, and he's been doing this throughout his career. So we will tap into his expertise and really learn how we can understand our own biases and begin to become more intentional with inclusion, right? It's not just about creating the programs, but really finding a way to weave it into the day-to-day. And he has a lot of great insight there. And then the following week, we have a big EX employee experience event here at Phenom. We just announced it today. So this is Experience Phenom Talent Marketplace. It's going to be on November 22nd. We will not have an episode on Thanksgiving, but we will definitely encourage you to check out Experience Phenom that week, that Tuesday. We can talk about that later, Devin, if you want to dive into the details of Experience Phenom. But we'll do that, and then we'll probably round it out with one final special episode after Thanksgiving week. So we have a lot. We have a lot coming up, but it's going to be an exciting series, and we're following the blueprint that you set with the recruitment marketing series. So I'm excited.
Tom, it's a busy November. I, for one, am thankful that Thanksgiving falls on a Thursday this year, but it falls on a Thursday every year.
Sure.
So yeah. It'll be good. If you want us to stream TXL, we can. We'd be more than happy to show you what we're eating, but we're probably not going to go in that direction. Tom.
Well, Devin.
Yes.
last year we did have an episode where we just showed turkeys being roasted on loop for I think 30 minutes. So if anybody caught the special Thanksgiving episode of TXL last year and you want us to repeat that, I believe we'll be more than happy to oblige. But I don't think we're planning it again this year. I think it was a little too tongue in cheek, but
Tom,
yeah.
the only way that you could do that again is if you go even more tongue in cheek and actually have a Comedy Central stand up special on the roast of a Thanksgiving turkey and just crack cheesy dad jokes
I
the
love it. Yeah.
entire time.
Yeah.
Um, but no, we have this theme, right, and we're tackling it throughout pretty much all aspects of marketing right now. So Tom, obviously you're having conversations. You mentioned our conversation with Jorge. You've had conversations, with Ashley. I want to know, what are some of the trends in employee experience in talent marketplaces that you're hearing? Obviously, when we talk about employee experience, we're not talking about a good parking spot or something along those lines. We're getting far more intricate on how to engage, develop, and retain talent. So, what are some of the trends that you're hearing?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's important when we think about the employee experience kind of tech ecosystem, which has been growing and been innovating, and it's super awesome to watch. But it really spans so many different facets of what we experience as employees. And I was talking to an analyst, and he mentioned too, it's everything, right? It's everything from the chair that you sit in. It's not just the app that you use, for payroll and benefits. It's everything all the way down to the fluorescence of the lighting, to the chair that you sit in, and maybe a bit about your parking spot, Devin. To your point. So it's just everything, right? And I think that because it's everything, it can be hard to really conceptualize and really wrap your head around what to focus on and what can have the biggest impact, right? But because there's so many different facets, from how we onboard to how we get paid, and as I mentioned, how we access benefits. There's so much innovation happening all over the place. Phenom and a few other vendors, we sit in this talent marketplace slash talent mobility space. And when you think about what a talent marketplace is, because it is a new kind of category of emerging technology, I define it this way. So a talent marketplace is really just a platform that connects employees with the right opportunities. Now, traditionally, we probably think about those opportunities as a new job, so it's connecting employees, matching employees. We think about job matching, same job matching that we talk about on the candidate experience side, but we think about matching employees to the right job. That's typically how we think about it. But we've been expanding it at Phenom, and other vendors have been expanding it. It's all about connecting employees to opportunities that go beyond just jobs. So we're thinking about gigs or short-term projects, learning and development opportunities. What's the next best course for you to take, or the next best certification for you to get? And even matching people with people, right? Folks with people who will move their career forward. So matching them with resource groups or peers or mentors. So everything in our talent marketplace and this emerging category, it's optimized to really understand every employee's unique career goals and aspirations, and then connect that employee to the right moments, the right experience that will help get them to where they need to go. So sometimes that's a new job. Sometimes it's just evolving or leveling up in your existing job. Here at Phenom, we really take it a step further because our talent marketplace is integrated into the full platform, right? So you mentioned at the top of the show, we have our intelligent talent experience platform, and talent marketplace is just that employee component of it. But we create moments for candidates, so like we're creating moments at the beginning of the talent lifecycle. We're following that through the data that we collect, the intelligence that we utilize. It's being followed through all the way from the candidate experience through the employee experience. And we're creating those moments that empower recruiters, hiring managers, and talent leaders as well. So talent marketplaces, just as a category, excites me, right? So in terms of trends, I'm seeing more and more innovation here. I'm seeing more adoption, more customer adoption, because before it was like a nice to have, or like conceptually that sounds good, but we're starting to see more and more customers actually really building programs and implementing this and getting the employee adoption and seeing the value there. And then also in terms of trends, to get back to your initial question, you were at HR Tech in Vegas, Devin. And every podcast recap that I listen to, every session highlight blog post that I read, everybody that I talked to who went, they said skills, 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 right? When they came back, they said everyone is talking about skills on the talent acquisition side, on the talent management side. Skills seems to be such a kind of raging hot topic in HR tech right now. And it really is kind of baked in this again new category of skills technology, that it continues to grow. So when we think about skills and competencies, they're really kind of the building blocks for development, talent development, and talent mobility. It's how we're able to effectively match individuals to opportunities. And using artificial intelligence and machine learning, what we can do now is we can really understand all the skills that exist at your entire organization, who has them, where they are, where those individuals are in their talent journey. Are they flight risks? Understanding what skills are in supply, what skills are in demand. This level of intelligence, we've never really had full access to this before. Now that we're starting to elevate this to end users like talent leaders, it's really a game changer for organizations. And it's finally attainable. So we're finally seeing this come to fruition, at Phenom and with others. There's a really great report by Red Thread, is a firm that dives deep into this entire segment of HR tech. So they looked at all these different skills tech vendors and the different types of work that they're doing. So if you Google Red Thread and skills technology, you'll find it. But just in terms of trends, Devin, the two that I'm following really is talent marketplaces. Like they continue to grow, they continue to innovate, and skills technology. So check out that Red Thread report. Anybody who's listening, if you want to really dive deep into this area.
Absolutely, Tom. And I loved a number of points that you made there. The evolution of the talent marketplace. You mentioned, Phenom is kind of known for the candidate side of the house, right? Getting talent in your door. But for quite a long time, your talent was not forgotten. I won't say that, but looked over, right, for new roles. And what you're saying around talent marketplaces is it gives people the opportunity to potentially find that next role, but that may not be it. You mentioned you listened to a ton of HR tech podcasts and everyone was talking about skills. And immediately what comes to mind is people, filling out their resume, right? How many times have you seen or heard of proficient in Excel on someone's resume, right? I watched on ESPN2 the World Championships of Excel. I can tell you no one that I know is proficient in Excel. But when you talk about these learning and developments, and I'm looking forward to this Degreed episode, if someone can go through the courses and learn the intricacies of some of these technologies and then add that onto their profile, they're going to be not looked over anymore, potentially, if they are looking for a new role or they are looking for that mentor to take that next step in their career. Because I've said it 1,000 times, employees and people are like plants, right? Everyone wants to grow. They want to expand. Not many people want to be stagnant. And allowing these talent marketplaces for, folks to find that next step is awesome, especially with how timely everything has been in the news lately. Employee experience has certainly been a hot topic. It's something that we've covered on this program. Quiet quitting, productivity paranoia, all of that nonsense and noise, if you will, that is going on. It's made its way onto the CNNs and the Fox News and the NPRs.
Sure.
We're not used to having those conversations on those platforms. So I want to ask you, what's your take on all of this quiet quitting and productivity paranoia kind of trend?
Yeah, I will 100% answer that question. But before I do that, I want to go back to something you said, right? So I did like your analogy of kind of thinking about the employee experience and thinking about employees as plants, right? And not to dehumanize anybody, but when we think about what you mentioned and previewing kind of a sneak preview of the conversation with Todd at Degreed, there's always kind of been this sense that learning and development is traditionally just training, so like what is the responsibility of a learning and development team or learning development org? And I think traditionally, and if you go back 5 years, 10 years, it's always been training. It's been understanding what teams need to be trained on, and then get the budget for training, and then find who the trainers will be, bring in the trainers. Sometimes you're training the trainers, and then you have the trainings, right? And then it's evaluating how the training went. So it's training, training, training. And I think if you think about kind of making sure that a plant can grow, I think the elementary way of thinking about that is you just water it, right? You water the plant, right? Make sure the plant's watered and the plant will grow. And in some cases, that's true, right? You water the plant will grow. And if you train the employee will grow. Yes. But there's so much more to it, right? And I think that we're starting to really wrap our heads around what are all the other ways you can really make sure that employees are being nurtured and they're evolving in the way that they should, right? And if you think about a plant, it's not just water, it's sunlight, right? It's probably a certain amount of sunlight, certain type of sunlight, soil quality, right? There's so much more that goes into it. There's probably additional nutrients that you can sprinkle in there. I'm not a plant person, so I'm just making all this stuff up, but it sounds good, so I'm just roll with it. But there's probably so much more. And if you talk to a plant person, they'll tell you that, right? And I think learning and development has evolved so much, and employee experience has evolved so much that there is all these different elements that we can do to really make sure that every employee is getting the unique, individualized nurturing that they need to get to where they need to go, which is a perfect segue into my response to your question. Because if they're not getting that, right, then sure, like they're probably going to quiet quit, right, or quietly wither, if they were a plant, or just like sit there, right, in the corner, soaking up whatever sun they can get, if they can get some, and if somebody comes around and waters them, great, no big deal, right? So the latest trends, all that nonsense, like I think a lot of it, I think most of it is just marketing, press, buzzwords, that get thrown out there. Like how many times, Devin, did we say the great resignation or the big quit over the past 24 months? Like
You mean
we said it.
the turnover tsunami, Tom?
The turnover tsunami, yes. I mean, people were coming up with new ways to say it just because they were trying to differentiate the initial wave of buzzwords that we had, so I think a lot of times it is buzzword material that people cling on to because it makes for a good headline. It's good clickbait. And a lot of that I think is true. So, right. But I do think that if you dig deep enough, there is some truth, some merit to some of these trends, quiet quitting, for example. I think, quiet quitting has been, kind of criticized as, that's just doing your job. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of just doing your job, right? Like this is what you were hired to do and you're doing it. So you're just doing your job there. So I think it gets distorted, right? Productivity paranoia is an interesting one, because the first time I really heard that, it came from a Microsoft piece of content, and that was based on actual research that they did. So like I read that and I heard productivity paranoia, and it made sense to me, and I felt like it was really grounded in the research that they did. So it felt less of like a buzzword to me. I think all of that to say, like there's always going to be these headline grabbers, and there's always going to be these like trendy things that pop up. For me, it kind of always wants it makes me always want to go back to the basics, right? And for me, the basics, I've mentioned this on TXL before. I mentioned this on a lot of webinars that I've hosted here at Phenom. I'm a firm believer that there are 3 core principles that drive our motivations at work. And I didn't come up with these. These came from Daniel Pink, who's an author. And he wrote a book. He wrote a bunch of books, but one of them is called Drive. And it's really all about what drives us and what motivates us to do the things that we do. And the 3 principles, the 3 ideas that he presented were mastery, autonomy, and purpose, right? Mastery, autonomy, and purpose. Mastery is, feeling like you're growing, you're evolving, you're getting better at things. Like no human really wants to stay, most humans really don't want to stay at the same level, forever, so like you want to continue to improve in your craft over time. You want to get better. You want to feel like you're getting better. You want to feel like you're mastering what you're being hired to do or what you're being sent to do. autonomy is really feeling like you have control over your own destiny, right? You have some type of uh, control. You're self-directed. You're not just being told what to do 24/7. It's not just do X, Y, and Z. Autonomy could be, hey, do X, Y, and Z, but how you do X, Y, and Z, that's up to you. Like that's autonomy. But if your entire job is always going to be do X, Y, and Z and do it my way, eventually your employees are going to feel like there's more to work than that, and they're gonna want to attain that. And then the last one is purpose, right? And purpose is really feeling connected to the why. Like, what is the why? Like, why are you doing these things? Um, and it sometimes it is compensation, right? Sometimes the why is for the paycheck, and sometimes the why is greater than that, and a lot of times it's a combination of all those things, and making sure that employees really feel that and consistently feel that, I think, is important. So when we hear about productivity paranoia and when we hear about the quiet quitting, I think what's happening is people are just getting burnt out. Employees are getting burnt out. Employers are getting burnt out, trying to prevent employees from getting burnout. So it's this cycle of burnout. But I think it really goes back to those three principles, right? And I think it's because employees, they lose some connection, to one, two, or all three of those principles. They lose a bit of that connection. And I think a lot of times what happens in my experience and just kind of the way I've been watching things play out over the past couple of years, it's not always intentional. The employer is letting that disconnect happen unintentionally because they're managing these macro challenges, right? So if you're at the leadership level, or if you're a CEO or CHRO, I mean, you're managing supply chain and recession and the pandemic and workforce efficiencies and competition, competitive pressures. There's all these things that the employee gets shielded from, because it's not part of their day to day. They don't have to worry about how is an oil crisis that's happening, miles and miles away from me. How does that impact what I do? Whether it's stocking shelves or what we do, sitting behind a laptop, so it's hard, I think, to draw those lines. But it's easy, I think, for leaders to let those macro challenges dominate their decision making. And then they lose sight and they neglect some of the day-to-day challenges that employees face. So I get it, like quiet quitting, productivity paranoia. I always get it. But I think the one thing that I will recommend, and I want to dive into this with some of our guests. One thing that helps for me personally is really just having visibility and transparency into all the challenges, right? Like, have the conversation between your leadership and your employees. We don't need to know all the details, right? But when you're communicating changes like, hey, we're shifting focus to this new initiative, or hey, we're cutting this entire department, or hey, we're going to move everyone back to the office. We're bringing everyone back to the office, whether it's hybrid or full time. When you communicate change, you have to communicate the why behind it and the purpose, and I think that sometimes that doesn't always happen. And then employees, they lose connection to the why, right? The purpose. They lose connection to the sense of autonomy. I used to have autonomy, and now I feel like I'm being told I need to be in the office every day and I need to do things a different way. And I can no longer focus on this thing I was passionate about because now I need to focus on this new initiative. It happens, right? But I think that if leaders and employees can find a way to communicate better at scale, with more transparency, with more visibility, I think we will get away from some of these buzzwords, right? Some of this quiet quitting, some of this productivity paranoia. So long-winded answer. I know I rambled there, but I'm really passionate. Like, I'm really passionate about this, right? So I think it's easy to get lost in the headlines. But for me, it's about going back to the basics, right? Mastery, autonomy, and purpose.
1,000%. I love that piece. It's funny you bring up purpose and the why. I was on the internet yesterday, as one does, and I stumbled across a Gary Vaynerchuk snippet, if you will. Now, some people love Gary, some people hate him. He's a Jets fan. He's okay in my book. But one thing that he mentioned is folks' why changes over time, and it's so important to build that communication that you were just talking about between company managers and employees, and have that two-way street, because if you talked to Devin, and I'll just, talk about myself here, when I was 27 years old, my why is vastly different than my why is today. Maybe at that time I was, just looking for compensation or a title to make myself feel better, whatever the case may be. That changes over time. I'm 31 years old now, right? Things change over time, and having those communications and that really relationship between employees and organizations is so important when it comes to, building successful
Yeah.
businesses, right?
And even if the why is compensation, the why behind the compensation can change, right? So
Yes.
like when
Hmm.
I was in my 20s, uh, I was driven by compensation, but so I could get my season tickets to the Phillies game, to the Phillies games, and so I can see concerts, right? And so I can buy, vintage guitars, of which I have a couple,
Hmm.
behind me, right? My why is compensation now to some extent still, right? But it's so I can fund my kids' college, what is it, 529B or whatever it is, like
Hmm.
so I can make sure those direct deposits are going into the college fund and retirement fund and all those things. So like you're always going to have those tweaks and those changes, and you're always, as a leader, as a manager, you're always going to have a vast array of employees who are at different stages in life and at different stages of what motivates them and what gets them out of bed. And I think, again, that communication just is so critical, right? So important, because you can help everyone achieve what they want to achieve, right? There's nothing wrong with wanting compensation to go, uh, you know, buy collectible sneakers or to go to a concert. Like if that's what you want to spend your money on, that's awesome. And I think like you can help support that lifestyle if that's what drives people, and that's what excites people. Um, Similar to people who might have multiple kids and they need to manage that too. So like it's important. And then that
Hmm.
with multiple kids, maybe it's the flexibility that drives you. So like
Hmm.
being able to say like, hey, I got to go to this Halloween parade, and making sure you have the flexibility to do that. So I think it's important. Again, just open up the communication and just make sure that you're understanding what is really driving people.
Yeah. No, Tom, we could talk about this all day. I
Totally.
have a feeling we will talk about this all day afterwards. But I wanted to ask you. You mentioned at the top of the program, Phenom Experience Phenom. Excuse me. The
Yeah.
Talent Marketplace Demo Day. You mentioned it's November 22nd. What can we expect from that? More conversations along these lines? I hope so. But what else is in store?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, we've seen economic uncertainty, we've seen employee burnout, we've witnessed all these things. We've seen the workforce challenges that many enterprises have had to deal with over the past 18 months or so. And it's shifting so fast. I feel like we were entering into this kind of golden age of hiring, of employee engagement, coming out of the pandemic, and then kind of recession fears set in, and now things are changing on a dime pretty quickly as well too. So all of that to say, I think that enterprises are in a spot where they really need the ability to assess skill gaps, really understand their employee attrition, and make more informed decisions so that they can move faster and make the right decisions quickly. So we want to showcase at this event, which is Experience Phenom Talent Marketplace. It's going to be on Tuesday, November 22nd at 11 a.m. Eastern. We really want to show how Phenom and our technology can enable HR leadership and talent management with that deep intelligence, right? So we can enable you with the data and the intelligence to illuminate all your organization skills and competencies, illuminate those career paths, and really show how employees can move throughout the organization. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is the actual employee experience. So we want to show you how our talent marketplace works, how it looks and feels, how you can customize it to meet your employer brand, and showcase that, and how we use artificial intelligence to personalize every employee's experience when they log in, so that every employee is not seeing the same thing as everyone else. They're seeing the exact opportunities that make sense for them, that are going to help them move their career forward, right? And as I mentioned at the top of the show, it's not just open jobs, right? It's also, who's the best mentor for me right now to get the skills that I need? Are there resource groups that will help me feel like I belong in this organization, to help me connect with other peers who can help guide me in my career, connecting with the Degrees, the Udemys, connecting with the learning development platforms to say, hey, this course is going to help you get to where you want to go. So we recommend you take it. All of that, I think, is important. So we're going to have some of our internal strategists, Cliff and Lindsay, who, VPs of strategy here at Phenom. They're going to be kind of talking about their experiences working with our customers and working with our prospects, understanding the challenges that are out there. And then we're going to have our product experts actually demonstrating the product. So this is going to be hands-on with the product, how intelligence and experience can really unlock that competitive advantage, right? We want to help you streamline how you upskill, reskill, redeploy, and really evolve your employees. And we're going to do that in about 90 minutes to 2 hours. So it's not going to be all day. We're not asking you to commit your entire day to sit with us on Phenom, seeing a bunch of demos. Just come when you can. We promise you there's going to be something for everyone, whether you're in talent acquisition, talent management, talent leadership, HR leadership. You're going to definitely see how this emerging technology can help. We have 2 main sessions. The first one is boosting employee retention and mobility with an internal talent marketplace, really focusing on retaining your employees and then helping them grow. And then upskilling, reskilling, and evolving your talent with workforce intelligence. And that's going to focus on kind of that skills technology that we talked about earlier. So really excited for this. Hope that everybody can make it. I will see if we can drop a link in the comments here. I'll grab that, and then I'll drop that in while you take over, Devin.
Perfect. Tom, you said 90 to 120 minutes. This is shorter than a Christopher Nolan film. So you really have no excuses but to show up if you're going to sit through The Batman or Interstellar, which I just rewatched. Fantastic film, by the way. Tom, you talked about a litany of things there. One thing that I want to point out, you talked about so much more than training, than trains, than anything along those lines. So if you're just looking for trains, go to Penn Station. We are going to dive into something for everyone coming up on November 22nd. You said at 11 a.m., correct, Tom?
That's correct. Yeah, 11 a.m. Eastern.
Awesome. So what we have in store is the next 3 to 4 episodes of Talent Experience Live will be employee experience centric, talking about talent marketplaces. We have Experience Phenom Talent Marketplace coming up, a demonstration day. Tom, that doesn't sound like too much. Anything else we have going on over the next couple of weeks that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I'm personally working on an employee experience virtual reality application. So I'm gonna ask our boss JD, because I know budgeting season is coming up. Yeah. So I'm gonna need 10 PlayStation VR2s for prototyping. And so Devin, you and I can test out this new application. So
I think that
how do you feel
sense.
about that? Yeah, makes sense.
I'm not opposed to it. If we can lump that in with the jackets for budgeting season, yeah, I'm sold.
Totally. Yep.
It's done. No, this is awesome stuff. There is a ton coming up. Tom, I'm excited for the next few episodes of Talent Experience Live. It's going to make for what I think will be a great lead into Experience Phenom Talent Marketplace. I mean, all this before the new year, before 2023. I can't wait to see what we have in store for next year as we go through budgets and everything along those lines. I'm sure that there is other stuff that isn't employee experience related, which we will keep you up to date with on the show. But Tom, that does it for me. This has been a fantastic conversation. As always, you are a seasoned veteran sitting in that seat. I know that you missed it a little bit. Any final thoughts? Anything before we hop off?
No, always a pleasure. Always love being on the show. It would be remiss of me to not also say go Phils. So I'll say that. Obviously, that'll date this episode if you're watching the replay. But magical World Series run, which I'm very excited about. But no, Devin, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for having me on. And I'm excited to kind of take on this month. And we have a lot of great content coming up. So if you're not already subscribed to the Phenom channels, definitely subscribe. We'd love to make sure that you catch all of it. And be sure to shout out in the comments as you do. We love the interaction and we love being here for you. So it'll be a good month.
Yes. All right, everybody. Thank you. Enjoy your weekend. Go Phils. And I'm not going to say it, Tom, but I believe a certain bird plays tonight as well. So go Birds for
Yeah.
everybody at home.
Go Birds.
We'll see you next week.
See ya.